Can you go ahead and turn around for me real quick? I'm just gonna detain you and put you in handcuffs, okay?
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious, yes ma'am.
Why?
Turn around, please.
Why? Is this a joke?
No, it's not a joke.
What is happening?
Like I said, I'm detaining you right now. You're not under arrest, but I'm just detaining you.
She called police over a noisy garbage truck. Minutes later, she was the one being detained. Not the driver, not the crew, her. And that is exactly what makes this case so hard to ignore. Because this does not begin as anything serious. It begins as a complaint, a normal frustration, the kind of situation most people think should end with a quick conversation and everyone going back inside. But that is not what happens here. Somewhere between that frustration and what she actually does next, the entire story flips. The person who believes she is reporting a problem stops being treated like the victim and starts being treated like the person who may have crossed the legal line first. And once you see where that shift happens, this stops looking like a simple argument and starts looking like a criminal case.
Hello, all right, who's involved? Who called? You called?
I called up this gentleman.
What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Are you hurt?
No, not really.
Did you witness this?
No.
No? Anybody around? Just you and him? All right, so what's going on, man?
I live upstairs and I'm trying to work. I had a phone call coming and this noise just keeps going and going and going. So I just was on the balcony and I was like, excuse me, like, can you make that noise stop? Because he wasn't in the vehicle, it wasn't moving or anything. Like, can you just make the noise stop? Like, I have to get on this phone call. People live up here. And he just dismissed me. So I came down and I was like, can you please make this noise stop? And he's like, get the out of here. And I'm like, oh, I'll get the out of here. So I come around to the side. I didn't get in the vehicle, but it was slightly open. So I just stepped up and I shut it off one notch. He pulled me by my arm down. And he like held on to me really tight and like pulled me. And so I pushed him to get off of me. And then he punched me in the face.
This is the first reason the reversal works so well. At the start of her story, nothing sounds extreme. It sounds familiar. A resident hears a garbage truck outside her home. The noise is constant. She is trying to stay inside, trying to work, trying to go about her day, and the sound keeps pulling her out of that space. And that matters because this is where the audience is naturally pushed toward her side. She does not present herself as aggressive here. She presents herself as frustrated, interrupted, pushed into responding. That is an important difference. Because in the early part of this encounter, viewers are not being asked to judge her yet. They are being asked to understand why she came outside in the first place. So before this case becomes legal, it first becomes relatable. And that is exactly why the next turn hits so hard. Because the more reasonable she sounds in these first moments, the more surprising it becomes when the officer starts hearing the same story through a completely different filter. This is where the story starts to turn.
You have your ID or anything like that?
I can go get it upstairs.
All right.
Like, that escalated
really quick.
extremely quick.
Can you go ahead and turn around for me real quick? I'm just gonna detain you and put you in handcuffs, okay?
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious, yes ma'am.
Why?
Turn around, please.
Why?
Up to this point, the woman is still speaking, as if the goal is to explain why she was upset. But the officer is no longer listening the way a normal viewer would. He is not only listening for frustration, he is listening for conduct. And that difference changes everything. Because in a case like this, the facts that feel most important to the person telling the story are not always the same facts that matter most to law enforcement. She is focused on the noise, the confrontation, and the feeling that she was wronged. The officer is listening for something much narrower and much more serious. Physical action, interference, the point where a complaint may have crossed into a legal problem. And once that shift happens, her own version of events starts doing two things at once. It still sounds like a defense, but it also starts sounding like evidence. That is why this section matters so much.
Okay?
This is the
serious?
moment she
I'm dead
stops
serious,
being
yes, ma'am.
only the
Why?
narrator of the
Please.
conflict.
Why?
She becomes part of what is being evaluated. And from here on, the question is no longer just why she was annoyed. The question is whether her response involved physical action, whether she interfered, and whether that response may have crossed the legal line first. That is the point where this stops sounding like a complaint and starts moving toward a criminal case.
Handcuffs right now.
Because you're detained, I'm by myself, and you came from your house down here
Yeah.
because of a noise from the garbage truck, and you pushed this gentleman, okay? Hold on, that's what you just told me. So I'm by myself. Hold on, I'm by myself, so I'm detaining you because I'm by myself, okay? We got to cause a...
He's the one who punched me in the face.
Listen,
This doesn't make
okay.
any sense.
From this
I asked
point
you if you were
forward,
hurt.
the conversation starts splitting in two. The woman is still locked into the part of the encounter that feels most important to her. She is focused on unfairness, on what was done to her, on why the other person should be the one in trouble. But that is no longer the officer's frame. By now, he is listening in a completely different way. He is
Hold on,
not
I'm
trying
by
to decide who
myself,
feels more
so I'm
wronged.
detaining
He is
you
trying to determine what
because
happened
I'm by
first
myself,
that may
okay?
actually
We
matter
gotta
legally.
call
And that is where this footage
Me in
becomes
the
more
face.
interesting
Doesn't
than a
make
simple
any
argument,
sense.
because the two sides are no longer defending the same version of the story. She is arguing from emotion. The officer is evaluating sequence. She is still asking what was unfair. He is asking what happened first. And once those two frames separate, the encounter becomes much harder to resolve in real time. That is why she sounds unheard, while the officer sounds increasingly locked in. They are no longer arguing inside the same reality.
Sense.
All right. I asked you if you were hurt and did you need medics. I don't see any injuries on you, but from what you just told me, okay, you went and entered his car,
I
his
didn't
work
go in,
vehicle.
I just
you
shut
turned
the
it
thing off.
Okay. Can you shut the car off from the outside, ma'am?
I was standing on the thing and I pulled. Now I can't do anything, but I just shut it off. I didn't get in the vehicle. I just stepped on the thing and he grabbed me and pulled me down.
Okay.
And
I'll
so
be
I
right
pushed
back.
him
Okay.
off of me.
I'll be right back.
While the officer went to talk to the driver, the other continued the conversation with a woman.
This guy pulled me down off of the truck.
Because you got in his truck.
I
You're not.
didn't get in it. All I did was shut the one thing off.
You're just not going to accept the consequences of your actions, huh?
Is he gonna have any consequences?
He's protecting his truck. It's his property.
I did his truck. I didn't get inside of it.
Okay, well, he's finding that out. I just don't see what did you think was going to happen.
All I thought was happened was I shut off the truck and I have to go back in my house and get on my
What gives you that
phone.
right? What gives you that right? I'm just curious what you think gives you the
I'm
right.
not an entitled person.
It sounds like it.
upstairs.
It sounds a little bit like it.
This is
I
the
asked you if you
moment
were
the
hurt.
encounter changes from personal to legal. Up to now, the woman has been trying to explain why she reacted. But here the officer starts focusing on something much more specific. Not the emotion, not the annoyance, not even the argument by itself. The response. That is the turning point. Because law enforcement does not measure frustration the way civilians do. It measures action. It measures interference. It measures the point where somebody stops reacting verbally and starts doing something officers may treat as crossing a boundary. And once the officer starts hearing the encounter through that filter, the case takes on a completely different shape. The truck is no longer the real issue. The noise is no longer the real issue. The question now is whether her response involved physical action, whether she interfered, and whether that response crossed the legal line first. That is why this section matters so much. This is the point where a routine complaint stops sounding like a neighborhood dispute and starts sounding like the beginning of a criminal case. Not because the original frustration was fake, but because in the officer's frame, frustration does not create permission.
Wow.
For you to reach into someone's truck, that's asinine, in my opinion. It's a crime.
I didn't even get in the truck. I didn't vandalize it. I shut it off.
Trespassing, at least.
I live here.
You reached in his truck.
I didn't get in it.
You reached in it.
So?
Trespassing.
No.
Okay, we'll find out.
By this point, the garbage truck is no longer the center of the story. That may sound obvious now, but it is one of the smartest things this footage does. It starts with a problem that feels small and easy to understand. Too much noise, a frustrated resident, a complaint that sounds like it should end with a warning, an apology, or at most a short argument. But that is not where this case stays. Because once the officer begins focusing on conduct instead of irritation, the truck itself almost fades into the background. And that is the real shift. The noise is now just the trigger. The real issue is the response to it. The moment frustration stops being passive and starts becoming action, the entire encounter changes shape. That is why clips like this hold attention so well. They begin with one story and then slowly reveal that the real story is something else entirely.
Hit me? Are you kidding me?
No, ma'am.
He punched me in the face and I'm the one that's going to jail. I've got my 2 dogs upstairs. I have to pee. I have to call work. This is insane to me right now. And nothing's happened to him. He's a grown man who punched a woman in the face.
Like I told you earlier.
But once the officer moves into this stage, the emotional tone and the legal tone are no longer moving at the same speed. She is still reacting to the argument. The officer is reacting to the case. And that difference matters. Because in moments like this, people often think they are still explaining themselves, when in reality, the system has already started deciding what their actions mean. That is why this moment carries so much weight. Not because it is the loudest part of the clip, not because it is the most dramatic, but because this is the point where the encounter stops sounding like a dispute and starts sounding like a criminal situation with real consequences.
I still don't understand hold on a second. I don't understand why you think you have the right to go into someone else's property.
I didn't go into it. I just shut it off one notch to shut the noise
You're
off.
lucky. I'll be honest with you. You're lucky you're not going to jail for stealing a vehicle. Because technically,
Joking me?
no.
That is so extra.
Well, so listen, so I know it's a lot going on, but I need you to calm down.
My dog's upstairs like that.
Okay,
No, I
so
cannot calm down. He punched me in the face.
hold on. First of all, listen. I'm telling you right now where we're at, but I'm saying if you need to make arrangements and stuff, we can help you with that. But I'm just telling you right now, if that was a police car and we had sirens on there, would you come down there and do the same thing you did to that car?
Not a police car. I'm not an idiot.
Okay. Well, I'm just letting you know, when you trespassed inside the work vehicle.
I didn't go in it. My arm was in it at the most.
Okay.
I was still on this bottom rung.
This
Well,
is
I'm
where
just
the
telling
encounter starts changing from conflict to consequence. Up to this point, the tension has been mostly about who did what, who reacted first, and how the officer is interpreting the scene. But here the emotional weight starts to shift. The case is no longer just about the argument itself. It is about what this argument is now going to cost. And that is one of the reasons footage like this stays with people. Because once the possibility of arrest becomes real, the conversation stops feeling abstract. It stops being about principle. It stops being about who feels more justified. It starts becoming personal. Now the focus moves toward the kind of fallout viewers immediately understand. Real life, real consequences. The part of the day that does not go back to normal once the camera shuts off. And that shift matters because it changes how the entire clip feels. This is no longer just a disagreement with a garbage truck. It is a moment of frustration that is now spilling into the rest of her life.
With him, he punched me in the face.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
He punched me in the face, and you're over there laughing with him. And
You don't know what I
nothing's
was
gonna
doing.
happen?
I'm sorry, where are your shoes?
Well, they're upstairs. I live here.
Okay.
Yes, nobody does.
Okay.
You have a neighbor or somebody that can take care of the dogs?
I could put one in the crate, but this is just crazy. He punched me in the face.
You're missing everything before that.
You're missing the punch in the face. I've never been punched in the face in my life.
Wait. The very first crime that was committed was you entering his
I
truck.
didn't enter his truck. My arm went in the truck, and I shut the notch off. One thing, I was coming out of the truck. I never went in. To turn off a vehicle?
Is he good?
In handcuffs and arrested because I shut off someone's vehicle?
No, I don't need anything else from him.
There's a case on there.
I gave him a case. to
Piece
give him
of
a-
shit.
You got
Watch your
truck
mouth.
information, the tag on the truck?
No, I didn't get that.
This
I'm
is where the
sorry, excuse me.
emotional break becomes much more obvious. By now, the woman is no longer just reacting to the driver. She is reacting to the fact that the officer is not confirming the version of the story she expected him to confirm. And that is a very important shift, because what she seems to want in this moment is validation. She wants the officer to recognize that she was the one wronged. She wants the encounter to move back into the frame where she is the complainant, the victim, the person who called for help. But that is no longer the frame the officer is using. He
You're
is
missing-
not
you're missing
validating.
everything
He is
before.
evaluating.
You're missing
And to
the
someone
punch in the
already
face. I've
overwhelmed
never
by
been
the
punched in the
situation,
face in
that
my
difference
life.
can feel like
The very
betrayal.
first crime
That is
that
why
was
this
committed
section of the
was you
clip feels so
entering his
tense,
Enter
even
his truck.
without
My
a dramatic
arm went in
physical
the truck, and I
escalation.
shut
The
the
emotional
notch off. One thing, I
conflict
was
is now
coming out
bigger
of
than the
truck. I
original
never went
complaint.
in.
The problem is no
To turn
longer
off
just the
the
noise.
vehicle.
It is the
Is it
growing
good?
realization that the system is reading the story in
No,
a
I
way
don't
she
need
did
anything
not
else from
expect
him.
and does not
I
accept.
Wait, he's the victim?
Yeah.
Are you guys serious? This is like a nightmare right now.
Listen.
He punched me in the face. I don't understand what you guys don't understand about that. I called the cops on him.
I know, but there is no logical reason for you to leave your residence and do what you did today. That's what happened, and that's why we're in this situation.
Logical, because I couldn't stand the noise and I had to get on a phone call at 2:30. Like, if you don't like repetitive noises either, then maybe you understand how I was up there just listening and listening and listening, going, oh my God, it's giving me anxiety.
So it got to
This
the
is
point.
the biggest reversal in the entire clip. Up to this point, the woman may still believe the story can somehow return to the version she walked in with, that she is the complainant, that she is the one who called for help, that she is still in some meaningful sense the victim of the encounter. But this is the moment that assumption fully breaks apart. Because in the officer's frame, those roles are no longer the same. The person who called police is not automatically the person law enforcement will treat as the victim. And that distinction is exactly what makes this footage so compelling. The reason this hits so hard is that most viewers carry the same assumption she does. If you are the one calling for help, then surely the system should see you as the wrong party. But that is not how this works. Not once the officer believes the real turning point of the encounter was her response. From that point on, the story is no longer controlled by who reported the conflict first. It is controlled by who the officer believes crossed the legal line first. And that is the moment this footage stops feeling like a complaint gone badly and starts feeling like a full reversal of roles.
To the point where he has to pull you out of the car, and then you're alleging that he punches you, hit you, and then you push him,
When he pulled me off of the stairs, like he was holding on to me. He didn't like just like pull me. He was grabbing my arm and didn't let go. Pulled me down, and he had his hand still on me, and I go, get off of me, and I pushed him in the chest, and that's when he punched me in the face. And I wasn't even in the vehicle. I turned the key. That was it. It's like the smallest thing that
How can you
do.
turn the key without getting in the vehicle is what I'm asking.
Because there's 2 stairs on there, and I just reached my hand in. I didn't have to
That
get
means
him
you went
to
in the
sit there.
vehicle.
My hand did, yeah, absolutely. But I didn't get in the vehicle to vandalize it. I wasn't in there looking like I was going to drive it.
That's what trespassing is. It's not that you went in there to take something or commit another crime, but you weren't supposed to be in there. You had no permission to be in that vehicle. That's trespassing in a vehicle.
And that is why this conversation never really comes back together. She is defending intent. He is evaluating action. She is trying to explain why she did it. He is trying to decide whether what she did created legal exposure. That difference is bigger than tone. It is bigger than attitude. It is the difference between a human explanation and a legal interpretation. And once those two systems stop overlapping, both sides can feel absolutely certain while moving farther apart with every sentence. That is why this section matters so much. It explains the deeper engine of the clip, not just conflict, but misalignment, not just frustration, but the gap between feeling justified and being viewed as lawful.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but I just don't see it that way, and I think it's really, and you can shake your head and that's
Florida
fine.
state statute says it. I mean, there's no, you don't have to see it that way, but that's how it is. And you don't seem to understand it, but we're telling you how it is, and that's what it is.
I just think it's really dramatic.
Take it up with the governor then. I don't know what to tell you. It's Florida state statute. You're not going to change it. Your opinion's not going to change it. Absolutely. It's our job.
Him punching me in the face.
It's our job to enforce the law.
Vehicle.
Literally our job.
I didn't get in the vehicle.
You just said you did.
I put my arm in the vehicle to shut the thing off. That's all.
To be quite honest with you, what you committed, it's a theft of a vehicle. You deprived him.
Theft?
Hold on a second.
No, I don't
Hold on
even
a
want to
second.
hear you.
You deprived him of
I'm
his
sorry,
truck.
respectfully,
It's a
as
grand theft.
policeman,
It might.
You're being a real jerk.
No, I'm
Yes,
not.
you are.
I'm just holding you accountable to your actions.
By this point, the officer's frame is no longer shifting.
I see what
It's
you're
fixed.
saying, but I
That
just don't
matters
see it that
because
way, and I
once
think
an
it's
encounter
really-
reaches this stage,
and
the
you can
officer
shake your
stops
head and that's
weighing
all.
what feels
Florida state
unfair
statute says it.
and focuses on what the
I mean, there's
situation
no-
is
you don't
legally.
have to see it that way, but
That
that's how
shift
it is,
explains
man.
why his tone becomes
You
more
don't seem to
certain.
understand
He's
it.
no
We're
longer
telling you
reacting
how
to
it is,
emotion
and
or
that's-
competing narratives. He's reconstructing sequence what happened first, what followed, and whether any action crossed a legal boundary. Once he believes that sequence is clear, the original complaint loses influence. It may explain why the interaction started, but it doesn't determine how it ends. That's why the truck itself becomes less relevant in his reasoning. The noise is background context, not the deciding factor. What matters now is the point where frustration turned into action and whether that action can be interpreted as interference. His tone hardens not because he's emotional, but because from his perspective, the legal question is already settled. At that point, the encounter shifts from interpretation to consequence.
No, you're
I'm
being
holding
a
you
jerk.
accountable to your
You're
actions.
saying I thefted a car.
Yes.
Do you hear yourself?
Technically, yeah.
Do you hear
I-
yourself?
Oh, I know.
Wow.
I know. I've been doing
Please
this job
don't
a long
talk to
time.
me. Please
Oh,
don't
I'd
even
gladly
talk
not
to me.
talk. There's
Ma'am,
no big deal for
listen.
me.
Listen,
At
I
this
respect
point-
the cops. I do,
No,
but
at
that's
this
ridiculous.
point, at this point, is there any possible way that we can at least put this to the side for a quick second, just to see maybe you can get somebody to watch the dogs? Like, I know that you're concerned about them, and I don't want to see them thirsty or hungry. Do you have somebody that you want? Maybe we can give a call or something like that too.
Yeah. Can you guys come upstairs with me?
What makes the ending of this footage memorable is that it stops feeling like an argument and starts feeling like aftermath. By now, the original complaint is almost beside the point. The truck is still the reason all of this began, but it is no longer the thing that stays with you. What stays with you is the cause. The fact that a moment of frustration has now spilled into the rest of a real person's day, and possibly much more than that. That is why the final minutes feel heavier than the beginning. Not because they are louder, not because they are more chaotic, but because they make the consequences impossible to ignore. And that is what gives this clip its real weight. It is not just a story about conflict. It is a story about fallout, about how a situation that begins with noise can end with detention, legal exposure, and a completely different reality than the one either side may have expected when it started. That is why the ending lands. Because by the time the clip is over, the garbage truck barely matters anymore. What matters is the price of the response. If you step back and look at this encounter entirely from her side, the outcome becomes much easier to understand emotionally, even if it remains difficult to defend legally. From her point of view, this starts with an intrusion into her day. The noise feels relentless. She believes she has been pushed into responding. And once the confrontation begins, she continues to understand the entire situation through that emotional frame. That is why the officer's interpretation feels so impossible for her to accept. Because in her mind, the story never stopped being about what was done to her. She was the one disrupted. She was the one frustrated. She was the one who called police. So when the encounter starts turning against her, it does not just feel unfair. It feels absurd, like the system has taken the wrong story out of the situation. And that is what makes her reaction coherent from the inside. She is not responding as someone who believes she crossed a line. She is responding as someone who still believes she is the person who was wronged first. But if you step back and look at the same encounter from the officer's side, the logic becomes very different. For him, the complaint is not the part of the story that controls the outcome. It explains how the encounter started. It does not decide how the encounter is classified. What controls the outcome in his frame is sequence. What happened first that may have crossed a boundary? What conduct moved the encounter from irritation into interference? What action turned a complaint into something that could carry legal consequences? That is why he keeps returning to conduct instead of intent. Not because intent is meaningless in human terms, but because intent does not erase physical action once he believes that line has been crossed. And once that conclusion settles and the encounter narrows, the emotional force of her story may still be real, but it no longer controls the frame. From the officer's point of view, the outcome feels almost unavoidable, not because frustration was fake, but because frustration does not create permission. In the end, this was never really just a story about a noisy garbage truck. It was a story about the moment a person who felt justified stopped being seen as the victim of the encounter and started being seen as the person who may have crossed the legal line first. That is what makes this clip worth unpacking in slow detail, because it captures something uncomfortable but very real. The law does not always mirror the way people experience fairness in the moment. A person can feel provoked. A person can feel wronged. A person can feel completely certain that their reaction made sense, and still be the first person in the encounter whose action changes the legal meaning of everything that follows. That is the true reversal at the center of this footage. Not just caller versus victim, not just complaint versus arrest, but emotion versus boundary, justification versus conduct. And that is why the ending lands so hard, because by the time the clip is over, the truck barely matters anymore. What matters is the response, the decision, the point where frustration became action and action became a criminal case.